All right, we've made it to our capstone project where we're going to build the meme generator that we talked about at the beginning of this course. Now, the way this will work is part of the time I will put comments here that will give you some direction for you to build out parts of the UI yourself. At which point, like I have in the past, I will give you time to pause the lesson and do that. Afterwards, we'll go through that together. And there will be other times where I'm just building things on my own and kind of explaining what I'm doing. Now, notice that we're starting almost completely from scratch. The only thing that I have included already is a bunch of styling that I've pre-written. And the reason I did that is because, well, this isn't a course on styling, and just for time's sake, so that it's not too boring. But over in index.js, we have nothing here. So get excited, this is going to be fun, and let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is to create that boilerplate code that will get React to render something on the screen. And the thing you'll render should be an app component, which you'll need to create separately. Pause now and give that a try. Okay, let's get rid of this comment and we'll say import React from React. Import React DOM from React-DOM. We'll use React DOM to render our app component, which doesn't exist yet. We're going to put it at the root. We'll import app. And this is basically the boilerplate we need for there. So let's create our app.js. And there we will also import React from React. We'll export our component. Let's start by making a functional component called app, which we will have return something so we can see that it shows up on the screen. Awesome. Okay, let me type up some comments for the next thing that you're going to do. Okay, so you need to create two new components, header and meme generator. The header is only going to display things, and the meme generator will be calling to an API and holding on to data. So let that information help you determine what kind of component you're going to create. And as always, each of those components should be in their own file of the same name. Pause now and try that. Okay, this one's pretty straightforward, so let's create a new file called header.js and a new file called memegenerator.js. Get rid of these comments. We're in header. We'll import React from React. Export the header. And since this is going to be a component that just displays things, we'll make it a functional component. For now, always, I'll just put something that says header And over in meme generator, since this will be holding data and making calls to an API and so forth, this should be a class component. We'll still need to import React from React, and since it's going to be a class, I'll go ahead and just import component as well. Export the meme generator and create my meme generator class. Know that it will need a constructor which calls super, and I mentioned that it's going to hold some state, so I'll just put some empty state there. And I will also put my render so that, as before, I have something showing up. Now that I've created both of those, over in my app.js, I can import them. I'll go ahead and use them here. I'll need to wrap everything in a single element. We'll make an instance of our header and an instance of our meme generator. Awesome, good so far. Okay, over in my header, I'm just going to begin coding some stuff here. So I know that I want to use the semantic HTML5 tag header. And I want this to have an image. And we will set this as our source, which is a troll face. And we'll give it an alt property of problem. It's too long for this line already, so I will separated. We'll just have a paragraph that says, and if I save this, okay, you'll see my styles have kicked in because I used the header tag. And I'm going to go ahead. I didn't do a great job making this responsive, so I'm just going to make this window a little bit bigger. If that has overlaid your code a little bit, you may want to make sure you maximize the window here for Scrimba. You can go a little smaller probably. And this is everything we're going to do with the header for this project. So we're going to go to meme generator, and pretty much everything else we do will just be in this file. So now it's time for you to get your hands back on the keyboard. So I will write up some comments here for what you're going to do next. Okay, we'll just take this one small step at a time. So all you're going to do is initialize state to save the following data: top text, bottom text, and a random image. And I've provided the URL to the first image that you'll use. So pause now and do this. This one's pretty straightforward. So to initialize state, I'm going to build up this object here and save top text, which is text, but I'll just start it as an empty string. bottom text, also an empty string, and my random image, which I'll just say img, is the image I provided. Okay, we're not rendering this anywhere, so we can't really display this, but that's okay. This is good for now. Let me delete these comments. Okay, I have another challenge for you. Let me write up the comments now. So we're going to be using an API that provides a bunch of meme images, and your task is to make an API call to that API, which I've provided the URL to, and save the data that comes back, which you'll find under response.data.memes, to a new state property called allMemeImages. And the data that comes back is going to be an array. So pause now and give this a try. So when we're getting data that we expect our component to have at the beginning, we're going to use the lifecycle method component did mount. And as soon as the component mounts, we're going to use the native fetch function, and we're going to call to the URL that I provided. And this will return a promise that we need to turn into JavaScript object. We will call the JSON method on that. And then we'll get the actual response that will be useful to us. And I'm going to pull the memes array from response.data. And then, like it says, we need to save it to a new state property called allMemeImages. So I'm going to initialize that as an empty array to start. And then I will set state. And I don't really care what the previous state was, so I will just say allMemeImages should now be memes that we just pulled. And just so I can see that this data is here, I'm just going to console log the first item in this meme and take a look at what that shows me. Cool. So I've got an ID, a name, and a URL, which is what we're going to be using as this URL property. Awesome. Can delete these comments here. If you remember back from the demonstration of what this meme generator will look like, there's going to be two input boxes here that allow you to input the top text and the bottom text on the image. So what I'm going to do now is just stub out a form, and then I'll have you create the input boxes. So I'm going to wrap everything in a div. And building a form. And for my styling, I'm going to give this a class name of form. And we'll create a submit button. This is Jen. All right, and then I'm going to put some comments here for what your task is next. So now that I'm inside of my form element in JSX, in order to write these comments, I have to put the curly braces. So that basically tells the system that I'm back inside of JavaScript so I can write these comments. So what you're going to do, you can delete this when you're ready. What you're going to do is create two input fields, one for the top text and one for the bottom text. And remember that this form should be a controlled form. So you'll need to add any of the attributes to these inputs that you'll need in order for that to still work. Don't worry at this point about creating your onChange handler because that will be the next thing that you do. So pause now and try this. Okay, so this is just creating two inputs. So we will make two inputs. And to save time, I'm going to do this in both places. We will have a name attribute, which one of them is going to be top text, and one is going to be bottom text. So and both of these should be a type of text. I will give them a placeholder so I don't need to worry about having labels. Say top text and one will say bottom text. And then for this to be a controlled form, I need to make sure that I set the value equal to whatever the current value of state is. Top text or bottom text. And now the last part that I mentioned you'll be doing next is to write the onChange handler. And since these are both text inputs, you won't have to worry about checkboxes or anything like that. So this one should be fairly straightforward. For reference, let me write the comments up here. We'll create the onChange handler method here, and it should make sure to update the corresponding state property on every change of the input box. Pause now and do this. Okay, as I mentioned, this is going to be a fairly straightforward one. We're going to have a handle change that will receive an event. And to fix my syntax errors down here, I will create this to this dot handle change. And that method will need to be bound in my constructor. And while we're at it, I'll just put a console log here. See if this is working. And let me get rid of that console log from the memes. Console. And okay, our method is correctly firing. I want to pull the name and value properties from event.target so that I can get the name of state that I'm supposed to update, top text or bottom text, and then whatever's actually typed into the box. And I'm going to update my state. Now I don't care about the previous state, so I can just provide an object and I can say whatever the name is, give it the value that we pulled from the box. Okay, and we'll get a chance to see that that's working pretty shortly. If you want, you could pause now and either write a console log or put something in your render that shows whether or not this is working, but we'll just move on. Next thing I'm going to do is have a place to display our meme. Now remember, we're receiving an array of all the memes that this API has. And what we're going to do is make it so that when they hit the gen button, it just chooses one of those images at random to display in the area below. So I'm just going to build the area below right now. We'll make it a div. And for my styling, I gave it the class name of meme. We'll have the actual image here. And source is going to be what we've saved in state as the random image. And I'll just put an empty alt property for now. And then for the text itself, I'm going to have a couple of h2s. Which have a class name of top and bottom. And all they're doing is displaying what's saved in state. Top text and bottom text. Okay, so my image is showing up. This is the random image that we initialized here. And let's see if my text is working. One does not simply walk into Mordor. And you'll notice that every keystroke, my text is showing up correctly, which means I'm correctly setting the state on every keystroke. Okay, and the time has come for you to do the last challenge of this capstone, so let me write out some comments. Now, I wrote these purposefully a little bit vague so that you had to think back and look at your notes or go back and look at previous lessons, whatever it might take. We're going to create a method that when the gen button is clicked, it chooses one of the memes from our all memes images array at random, makes it so that image that it randomly chose is the one that shows up in our meme display image area down here. Now remember, the property on the chosen image in the array is .url. Let me write that here. .url is the property that is the string of where the actual image is hosted. This is your final push. Give that a try. Okay, so we could make it where I have an on-click handler for my button, but because this button is inside of a form, I personally think it's more semantic to have this be an on-submit of the form. We'll call this handle submit. So this is where we will create that function. We need to grab the event because we don't prevent the default. I'm going to try and refresh our page, which will be annoying. So we don't want that to happen. And while I'm at it, before I forget, let's bind the handle submit in our constructor. And what we have now is just a basic code challenge. So I will just pseudocode some of this. I'll say I need to get a random number which represents an index in the array, and then get the meme from that index. And once I have that meme, I'm going to set my random image property to the URL of the random item I grabbed. I've broken this problem into smaller parts. We're going to get a random number. And so that I can make sure that it's one of the indices in our array, we will make sure that I multiply whatever the random number I get by the length of the all meme images array. Okay, and now that I have that random number, it should be easy to get the random meme, which is just the index of the all meme images and the random number that we just got. And all I'm concerned with is the URL property, so I'm just going to snag that right now. And I just need to update state now. I'll use set state. I don't care what it used to be. And I know that I'm updating the random image property. And the value will be the random meme image. Let's save this and see what we get. Cool. You'll notice that some of these are funnier than others, but the point is we have a random meme generator. We've written the top text, the bottom text. It's randomly choosing from the array of images that we pulled from the database online. We now have a completed meme generator. And just because I'm OCD about this stuff, I'm going to get rid of these comments. This would be a perfect time to check this code out, see if you can play with it, make a better one. Maybe try to get images from a different API. And although it sounds really obnoxious, one of the best things that you can do to practice stuff like this is delete all of this code and try it again from scratch. Feel free to take a break at this point. You've really accomplished a lot of great things by following through this course and learning the things that you've learned. I have just a few more topics that I want to cover before we finish up this course. So, as always, when you're ready, let's move on.